Welcome back to the channel. We need to go over the Nasdaq 100 and the SP 500. Now, as we jump in here, there's a key level of which we are at right now. Let's clean this up really quick so you can see this. Go to the daily chart and we're just going to zoom out. What we're looking at is the lows from June and where you are right now. You can see this level is established and you can see this is where we are finding resistance on the day. As we go to something of the 5 minute, you can get a little bit more clearly. We are making higher lows as we speak and finding resistance here. It's looking like an ascending triangle, like it wants to start to break up. Now, we need to also talk about the fundamentals and how I see this moving over the next few days. But before we get into that, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing. Every single day, I am breaking down the market for you, getting you prepared so you know everything to expect and you're not shocked with any breaking news. And then also going over the trades that I am in as well. So as we look at this, we had some really great movement on the day. If you remember what we talked about yesterday, we anticipated CPI to be pretty terrible. And then we also started playing equities as far as Amazon. So that's the play that we had overnight. Obviously, Amazon, the entire market took a giant hit this morning, got out of those, and then you kind of started just riding on your way up. Now, personally, your first test of this range, I did go short. I got to put on the SPY, and then you ended up bouncing back. I ended up losing about 12% on that play. I made that crystal clear before I go any further, so everyone understands where I'm at right now. Now I'm sitting liquid, just waiting on the market and seeing how we move from here, because now you are trying to mount this area, at least on smaller time frames. Now you could easily come out tomorrow morning and push back down, but as of right now, going into tomorrow, you're finding a support over this area, and it's looking like you're flipping, and you're honestly looking pretty strong here. Now, let's talk about a few big things that are going on. Now, before I go too far into how I expect this movie tomorrow, I want to address, where we went this morning and what happened here. Now, this area down here of basically 10.65 is the major bottom line support. If we break and hold this, I have said, and I do believe, they'll start to go fill pre-COVID highs. That's how I view that level for myself. Also from this, though, you have to recognize that when you came down here, buyers did show up on the market. These are things that we have to acknowledge as you come down into key areas of support, right? So as you come down to that support, you have to react and see how buyers anticipate that. And you saw a lot of buying stepping in there. So that was a little bit of a shock that you dipped a little bit below that, but it was under 5 to 10 minutes, the length of time you stay down there. And obviously started bouncing back up all the way through the end of the day. Even still surprising myself with getting back over previous lows here, going into the last 5 minutes of the day. So these are things that I'm looking at right now. I have a few question marks, but I do want to address right now people asking, are you going long? No, I'm not. I'm first of all liquid, but I'm definitely looking at going long just based on the overall trend is straight to the downside. This is the daily overall chart. So basically going all the way back to mid-August, we can see we are in a clear downtrend. Okay, so I want to make that really clear so everyone can see what's happening, what I'm looking at, and kind of how I'm trying to play this at the moment as well. So I still do believe we have downside and we are still in that downtrend, but it's worth mentioning that every time we make a new low, you can just look here on the daily chart. Guess what happens? You're getting one of these really crazy, one of these really strong bounces on the market. So these are things to be looking at, to be anticipating, but it's also worth mentioning that we have more news coming out, and this news is going to drive the market and fuel the volatility. Now, there's a big concern I have, especially with going long, to make me believe that the trend has not flipped to bullish or a major bounce or anything like that. Now, number one, we talk about VIX. VIX is still trending essentially at these highs, okay? As we look at the broad chart, what's happening here, on most of these top ticking days, guess what? You see a lot of volatility back to the downside, specifically on VIX. You're not seeing that today, okay? We need to understand where we are and how we're reacting. You're definitely bouncing in this area. You're hitting back, but you're just trending at higher lows across the board and making higher highs here. Now you're trying to get above this and make a new high, which you have it. And it's worth mentioning VIX did not pump this morning either, neither to the up or to the downside. So it's really important to realize how we're moving here. This leads me to believing that this has more to do with what's happening with the margin requirements in the European markets and things over there. Now, this is no factual evidence. We have no proof of this. This is my personal opinion based on how positions were repositioning yesterday and then where we saw the bounce occur today. Just at those key lows, it'd be a really nice area to reposition and to fill margin requirements being at those levels. Again, glass half full. Definitely do not take that as DD for me. That's more of an opinion. So I want to make that really known. We talked about it in the previous videos as well. Also here, DXY. So this morning we saw a few interesting things here. Off the news this morning, what happened? Of course, we bounced. We had a really, really nice bounce, and you made a new local high here. And then preceding that from basically 7:30 on, you dumped. Does that make me bearish on DXY in the dollar? No. You're getting a pullback. It's important to remember what happened basically September all the way through, beginning of October. You had a pullback. As you break through these, you realize that it usually leads to continuation. So I'm going to be watching these key levels of where you're at. I would also bring up your daily, weekly, and monthly and show that you are respecting that monthly level as we speak. If you flip below this, then I would believe there's cause for concern and maybe some more potential upside in the short term as well. So these are things I'm looking at right now. Next up, it's going to be the yield, specifically the inversion, the one that I keep watching, the biggest one that I like, right? You're still trending locally at these highs as well. You are getting rejected from the monthly, but I want to still acknowledge that you're sitting inverted for almost a week, 2 weeks, give or take now. This is really almost going on 3 weeks. So it's important to realize that we've been inverted for a long time so far, and this is drawing out. So I do anticipate to get more volatility here on yields and to see how you react here as well. It's worth mentioning the Fed did sell off some of their yields as well in their bonds today. Worth mentioning. Go do your DD, go read about that if you want. So as I look at the market, what am I seeing? What do I expect? Specifically, I focus and am focusing more on indexes as you get some of these upside moves. Let me explain why. If you were in Discord and you, for instance, took the loss with me today on SPY, the 10-15% loss, whatever it may be, if you're or even monitoring that trade, it gives you a good for instance of how these contracts move. Basically, as we were getting in below the weekly around it was actually down here about 362-ish, give or take at this range. Guess what? It's worth mentioning you only got down 15 tops 12% in this range right here. So I want to mention that you're protecting yourself. These contracts may move a little bit slower, but they're going to keep you from making huge mistakes or taking major losses. And you're also, trying to time in and get prime entries for the volatile levels, of which luckily we've been able to time here and kind of follow along through these trends as well. So you're going to take losses along the way, but it's about making sure your wins greatly outweigh your losses by controlling your risk to reward. So these are things that, once again, I'm looking at here and definitely have my interest. You're going to hear the bell here in a second, so don't freak out. Going over to volume as well, worth mentioning, and this is why I believe it was a lot of repositioning, specifically when you look at volume as well. You're sitting at almost 131,000, definitely getting our breakout. And I talked about this almost yesterday. 137 million now. So you're seeing volume go up rapidly. As you look at this, it has to be on the bull case scenario here, because in my opinion, you're seeing a lot of that volume step in about right here. It's worth mentioning you had decent volume going into, the first 30 minutes of trading. But again, volume did proceed to follow through as you pushed up. So I definitely want to highlight that. And for everyone wondering here, if you are a little, chart nerd, or you're looking at some of these patterns, you like those, nothing against patterns, anything like that. But it is worth mentioning you are making an extending wedge right now, which is a bearish reversal pattern, worth mentioning. But do want to highlight that as well. Going back to volume, I do think this is significant, and one of the most bullish things about today is that you're seeing the volume follow through towards the upside, which we haven't really seen in a while. Again, though, it is worth mentioning you're holding below the key level we're talking about, the 11.11 flat. That's the really big area about right here, and you are getting pushed back beneath that. But again, you don't really want to press your luck here, and you definitely don't want to take any out of the ordinary risk, specifically in this market. We know a few things, that supply and demand has been working great, and you don't need to be forcing these trades, right? Because you're getting great setups. If you just go over the past 2 to 3 weeks here, you've had great setups across the board. It's when you start taking unnecessary risk and really almost gambling that you're taking the losses right now in this market. But if you just play the pure ranges that we are in and the key levels, in my opinion, it's been absolutely destroying, specifically on these indexes, not even talking about equities as far as Meta, Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, and some of the other plays we've taken like Tesla. So just even looking at these, you can really control your risk, and I still like it. And I still like it for the downside, to be honest here, if I had to trade anything. Now, I know people are asking a lot about oil. I've already been seeing comments from basically yesterday's video about this. I told everyone as you were coming back down, we had the breakup. We did get stopped out of our plays up here, and then we came back down into our zone. We were looking for an 80 to 85 to $86 range touch. You got it, and you bounced strong. But it's worth mentioning, you are not bouncing alone. You are following indexes. What does that mean? Basically, you are following indexes on the upside. So you're seeing the bounce with the Nasdaq, with the SPY. That does not necessarily mean oil is strong as an independent right now. I do want to mention, though, Exxon, one of our favorite stocks, right back above 100. You can see you broke above here. You came back down, only had to test 100.8. You didn't even go all the way back down to 100. So you're looking extremely strong, ready to break above local highs as well. Oxy, another one of our favorites, got back above our key level at 67.5. And again, you're looking for this to come back up towards the 72 to at least the $70 range as well. So Oxy, I do believe these are probably the safest bets. If I was going to go towards upside pressure, I would be favoring oil as long as the oil and the barrel remains above this level. But we also need to know, as oil continues to prove to be bullish, as the barrel goes up in price, what do we know? Guess what? That's terrible for inflation in the overall news. CPI, PPI all came out terrible. And guess what we have tomorrow? If we come over here really quickly, I'm just going to go to Discord very quick. As we come in here, let me pull this up as well. Going into our original copy, let's bring it up. You can actually see right here, tomorrow we have bank earnings, and this kind of starts the beginning of earnings season, if you will. We have JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Citi, Wells Fargo. All of these are coming out tomorrow. And the big thing to know here is JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, who no one knows, has been a firm advocate for a recession and a major market pullback, specifically with consumers, the average American, okay? Back to NQ, I definitely want to highlight the point that, yes, I am still bearish here. I still see downside coming, but you have to respect the bounce that you got here and ultimately holding above some of these levels right now, or at least at the very least holding at those key levels. Going into SPY as well, you had a strong day, a very strong reaction from those lows. But I do want to highlight, if we go to the broad look, my ultimate goal here, we have not even tested where I believe our short-term bottom could be, or where we could possibly even, the minimum bottom, which is pre-COVID highs on SPY. If you're getting close, it's worth mentioning. NQ as well. You still have about 1,000 points to go to get back down there. Go into ES, S&P futures. You got a lot closer, and you're definitely moving pretty quick there. But I am still looking for more downside across the board based on all these levels as well. It's worth mentioning, as we've looked at these, and something that we've been highlighting was when you were going to make new lows here across the board. What did we say about some of these other stocks as far as Meta? That these would absolutely be getting crushed. Right now, Meta is basically retesting lows from 2018. Going over to something like Microsoft, you've already been ripping below, pre-COVID. Yeah, I want to actually say right now, locally, no, you actually have not. I'm so sorry. You're getting there. You're getting close. You're definitely breaking down. You're killing your 2022 lows, but you're on your way there as well. Going over to Amazon. These other stocks are getting very close back down to these at least 2022 lows, but pushing and definitely testing the boundaries, going back to pre-COVID highs as well. Amazon already beating that as well. So these are the concerns. This is what I'm looking at as a broad market, and you're seeing very big pullbacks across the board. I don't have necessarily a trade for anyone today, or because I'm sitting liquid as well, so I can't really say anything that I love. But as I'm looking at this, I still do think that this was somewhat of an overreaction towards the upside, an extreme bounce, maybe shorts covering, realigning for margin. I can't give you a direct answer. I am not bullish on the market here, and I still remain very, very bearish. All the news that was released today was extremely bearish, and I do believe it'll continue to stack on each other, specifically with the way the Fed was aligning themselves and talking in those Fed minutes. I don't believe the market's calming, and I do believe earnings could be extremely dangerous for the whole market across the board.